Welcome to Train Signal. You're watching Video 3 Part 2, Configuring Outlook 2003. Now in this video we're going to continue from where we left off in Part 1, but get more advanced in the topics that we cover. In Part 1 we talked about email choices, POP3 configuration, how to set up a PST file, and also how to back up Outlook. We then finished off by learning how to set up an Exchange mailbox and then importing our PST file information into that mailbox. Okay. We also sent some email across the LAN, just some basically tests back and forth between two different email accounts, and just used email addresses and also consulted the global address list. In Part 2, we're going to get more advanced within Outlook, and we're going to look at things like sharing Outlook objects. So you may have one user who wants to share their calendar with another user. Then also delegating control of Outlook objects. Similar but different. In this case, you may want some user to send email on behalf of another user, such as an administrative assistant possibly sending email for an executive. Thirdly, we're going to look at assigning permissions in Active Directory. This is kind of a continuation of the first two things we were talking about, but in this situation you can actually send as somebody else. So certain user, that executive assistant that we were talking about before, can send email for that executive, and it's going to appear to come directly from that executive instead of being a send on behalf of message. We're then going to finish out with a couple other topics a little bit different from the first three. First one is a group mailbox setup. In this example, we're going to have a sales mailbox configured, and then all of our users in the sales department will be able to access this sales mailbox, pull down the email, and then check that email from the same common mailbox. Then no matter who's in the office that day or who's checking email, one of those sales users can then respond to our sales leads by just emailing that person back. So you get a better feel for that when we get into that particular section. And we're going to finish off with Outlook profiles. And this is going to allow you to set up different profiles based upon where you're actually located. So if you're a laptop user and your laptop is in the office, you can set up a profile so you're checking your email using just an Exchange mailbox with that local area network. Maybe you're out of the office though, okay, and you're traveling, you don't have access to your Exchange server. In that case, you may have a profile set up where you're actually using a POP3 email account, just depending upon what works for you. Okay, let's get started. First thing we're going to look at is sharing components with other users, the sharing Outlook objects. So what we're going to do here is just go back out to the desktop, and to explain our setup here, we're going to log over to XP1. We're going to log on as Bob Bass as a starting point. Okay, and we'll slowly build up this example just to make sure that you got a good comfort level. Okay, Bob Bass is a normal user. He's logging on to XP1. He's logged on here before, and now he's going to open up Outlook, which has already been configured for Bob Bass because he's logged on here previous times. Okay, now what we're wanting to do here, this is Bob Bass's mailbox, and Holly Mackerel, another user within this company for Sophie's Toy Box, we're wanting her to actually be able to see some of the different components that Bob has. For example, he wants to share his calendar with her. He also wants her to be able to see his email and possibly a couple other items as well. So what we want to do here, first off, is go down below, click this folder list so we can actually see everything. If we're not in the folder list, if we're just in one of these views, notice right now we only see information related to mail. So we have deleted items, drafts, inbox, so on and so forth. Okay, so clicking each of these is nice on an individual level, but if you want to be able to see and manage everything at once, click this folder list option and you can see everything up above. Okay, so here we see that we have Bob Bass's mailbox, and underneath Bob Bass's mailbox we have the calendar, contacts, deleted items, inbox, some of the key ones. And what we're going to do is share three different items with Holly Mackerel. Okay, the first one is going to be the inbox. We want her to be able to see the email within her folder, or within Bob Bass's mailbox when he's out of the office. She should be able to see this email, and then basically for this point right now we're not wanting her to respond to people, but if Bob needs her to refer to something or refer to, let's say, a sales contract when he's out of the office, he'll have access to her email. So to do this, we just right click on the actual folder, go to properties, and then you see you have permissions up here. Now when we click permissions here, and we're going to be using this type of permission style throughout, so we'll take some time to explain this right now. When you look at these permissions, you have default and anonymous as the only entries on this access control list. Okay, and default refers to everybody, anybody who might be actually accessing this particular folder. Anonymous are anonymous users. They're really not going to pertain to our situation right now, okay, because we're not going to be using anonymous users. So let's focus in on this default permission level. Okay, so right now if Holly Mackerel attempted to access Bob's email through his inbox, she wouldn't be able to see any of this, okay, because she has no permission. So what we're going to have to do is click Add, and we find Holly Mackerel's name here from our global address list. Okay, and by the way, this particular piece, this is something that Bob could be doing on his own. If he wanted to share his information with Holly, he can do that just by coming in here and actually doing this on his own. Okay, so by default, Holly's been set up with the none permission level. It just steals this from the default. Okay, so we're going to have to give her some sort of permissions, and to do this, we come down here to our permissions box, and this takes a little bit of getting used to. But essentially what we have here, up top we have a permission level. Okay, and these permission levels, owner, publishing editor, editor, these are just general settings. When you select one of these, what it does is it takes a combination of these actual permissions below. Okay, and if we look at these, they get more access down to less access. So you see none here is at the bottom. If we do contributor, notice that it checks create items and folder visible for us. Those are the default permissions anytime you select contributor. If we go up the ladder here a little bit, we go to reviewer. Okay, now we can read items, folders visible. It's actually just a little bit different permission than that first contributor level. Okay, non-editing author. Now you see we can both create, read, and the folders visible. We also are able to delete items, but only our own items, not any item within this particular inbox. Okay, so as we step up here, you get different levels of permissions. If you go up to owner, you've got everything checked here, and then you have the ability to edit and delete all items. Okay, so you can go ahead and use these permission levels, or if you know exactly what you want, you can do your own custom level and just choose and pick exactly what you want here. Okay, so now you see custom is here, and that's because this combination of permissions doesn't match up to one of our predefined settings. Okay, Bob's going to give her publishing author right now, so that allows her to create, read, create subfolders, and makes the folder visible. Okay, so thinks that's good enough, should be able to do everything she wants. If this seems like too much, just come back in here and then, modify this down. So now if you wanted to make her a non-editing author, for example, now she can create items, and maybe he doesn't want her to create items. So keep choosing until you find something that kind of matches what role you want Holly to pick. And in this case, if we just make her a reviewer, that allows her to read items, makes the folder visible, okay, and doesn't allow her to edit or delete anything. And this is kind of the permission level that we described initially. So we're going to go ahead and choose this reviewer permission level to start with. Okay, so we click OK here. Okay, and now if we want to do this for any of the other items, we have to go to each one of these separately and go ahead and set this. So I'm going to go to calendar here, and we're going to do the same thing here relatively quickly. We need to go to add, Holly Mackerel, just double click there, click OK, and then assign Holly's permissions. And we're going to give her reviewer permissions once again so she can read and see the folder. Okay, I'm going to click this folder list here again so we can see everything. And now what I want to do, one last thing that's important, depending upon what view Holly is actually viewing Bob Bass's mailbox, you need to give permissions at this top level mailbox as well. What'll happen, most times when you set this up, Holly has permissions now to the inbox as well as the calendar, but when she goes to try to set up his mailbox, she's going to be denied access because she does not have permissions to this top level object. Okay, so you need to give her at least view or folder visible permissions for this top level mailbox. So we're going to do that now just by going to properties, permissions, okay, and we're just going to add Holly's name in here, just like we done 2 times previously now. So that's the only permission you need to give her, nothing higher than that. Just make the folder visible, which is just going to make her be able to see this and then open it up. Okay, so we click OK here, and now we're set from this particular, on this side. Bob Bass's job is basically done. Okay, so we're going to minimize this, and now we're back over here onto our XP base system. Okay, and this, right now we're using this as a secondary machine, and to speed things up, instead of having to log off XP1 and then log back on again as Holly Mackerel, which is how you would be doing this in the lab, we're going to go ahead and use this second machine over here and allow Holly Mackerel to access her email here. Okay, so we're actually already logged on here locally as Holly Mackerel. And what we're going to do is just open up Microsoft Outlook, and you see here we've already configured her Exchange mailbox. So just changed a couple things, the view, made it a little bit easier to see here, and that's all that we've done so far. One thing we don't see, though, is Bob Bass's information. You don't see his inbox over here, and you also don't see his calendar, the stuff that we had shared with Holly. In order to see this information, we're going to have to basically turn it on here. So you either have to educate Holly, or you have to go do this yourself as the administrator. And one way you can do this is to just open it up temporarily. And you can do this by right-clicking the mailbox up top and then going down to Open Other Folder and then Other Users folder. Here you just select Name, which opens your global address list, and you select the name who's actually who you have permissions for. Okay, and you can't just select anybody's name. If we selected Angelfish, for example, and we want to open up and check out his inbox, we get an error here. We don't have the permissions necessary to actually view his information. Okay, but we do have Bob Bass's information, and we should be able to see his inbox. Okay, and you see here when we click OK, it now displays this information, okay, and now you can see it. Now this works. I don't prefer this way for a couple of reasons. One, if I need to access something over here, such as the inbox, Holly's inbox, this disappears, and it's real difficult, I've found, to get it to reappear over here. It's real quirky in how it actually works. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so let's say, for example, Bob's talking to Holly on the phone right now, and Holly needs to go back to her own inbox to consult something. So she clicks here. Notice that it's disappeared over here. Well, one way to pull that back up again, remember, is just come down here, go down to Open Other Folder, Other Users folder, and just select Bob Bass. Okay, well, it's time-consuming, one, and two, the information doesn't appear over here anymore for some reason, which is kind of strange. You can also attempt to go up here and then go to Open, and you see the most recently opened information here. So you can select the Bob Bass inbox here, and once again, it just doesn't pull up for some reason. Okay, so no matter what you do here, you can go through that same procedure we did before. It doesn't seem to want to display this information here. Okay, if you close this and we reopen Outlook though, okay, now if we come up here and go to File, Open, Bob Bass, now you see it does pull it back up again. Okay, but for me personally, I'm not really into opening, closing over and over and over again. That doesn't really work too well. Okay, so let's take a look at a different way where we can actually enable this and have it on a permanent basis. Okay, and this is how you're going to do it, I would say, in most situations. What you can do instead, we're going to add a mailbox over here next to Holly's mailbox. And to do this, we need to go up here to Tools. We're going to go to Email Accounts, View or Change Existing Email Accounts, and we're going to edit this Microsoft Exchange Server account. So we're just going to come up here to Change, More Settings, and then the Advanced tab here. Okay, now mailboxes, open these additional mailboxes. We just click Add, and you need to know the name of the actual user, or at least the starting point. So I'm just putting in BBA. As long as this is unique as far as Exchange aliases are concerned, it'll fill in the right user. Okay, so I've got Bob Bass filled in here. I just click OK again, Next, and Finish. Now look at what we have over here in our folder list. We actually have Holly's mailbox, and we have Bob Bass's mailbox, so pretty cool here. Now if we open this up, notice that we see all of these different items for Holly. If we open up Bob's, however, we only see the calendar and the inbox, which are the two things that have been shared out by Bob. Okay, so here you see the email, and then here you see the calendar. Now remember, we were only assigned reviewer permissions, so according to that, it should only let us take a look at this information here, access it, read it. But if I try to delete it, okay, it doesn't allow me to actually delete anything. Okay, so Holly is only a reviewer. Same thing with the calendar. Okay, you can view the calendar and there's nothing in here, so it won't be overly exciting. But if you go to actually set an appointment, okay, we don't have the permissions to actually do this. We'd have to grant Holly additional permissions if we're wanting her to actually do this. Okay, so that's probably something that Bob will eventually want to do. So to do that, it's real simple. Okay, we just click OK here, and we can close this down. And we're going to connect over to XP1, and we're logging on as Bob Bass once again. Okay, so we're just going to open up Outlook, logged on as Bob Bass. Okay, and if we decided that we want to give her additional permissions, well, we just need to go back up to, the inbox or the calendar. Let's just focus on the calendar for now. Okay, and here you see Holly Mackerel. What we'd like for her to be able to, and if you're not comfortable with these permission levels, just come down here and give her exactly what you want. Create items. I want her to edit her own items, or actually I want her to edit all items, because if I added something in there, I'd like her to edit my items too. Can she delete stuff? Yeah, I want her to be able to delete stuff as well. Okay, and that's all that you really want her to do. You don't want her to be the owner, where she sets permissions. You don't want her to be the folder contact, and subfolders aren't really applicable in this case. Well, you could create sub-calendars, I guess that's what the permission would be here. So that's not something you need for Holly to do either. So these permissions work out great, and as you can see up here, the default permission level that these match up to are editor. Okay, so leave these permissions, then click OK. Okay, and now I'm just going to minimize here, so we're back over to the machine where Holly is logged on. Okay, so I open up Outlook here, and now let's take a look. If we come down to Bob Bass's mailbox, we can open up the calendar, and we should be able to, yep, set up a appointment here. Let's see if we can actually go through and finish it off. So, meeting with Patty O. I was trying to struggle to remember the name we used in the lab book to have some sort of consistency. Okay, so you see here we're setting up a meeting with a lady named Patty O'Brien between 10 and 11 on March 17th. Okay, and there's all sorts of stuff that you can do, inviting people using Exchange Server. You can set up recurrence. This is stuff we don't have time to actually cover in this video, but it's stuff that, depending upon your needs, this is stuff that you can mess with and educate yourself on. This is really stuff, though, that's kind of the end user's responsibility, depending upon what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. So we click Save and Close here, and you can see now Holly has successfully set up an appointment for Bob Bass in Bob Bass's calendar. Okay, and just to possibly answer questions you may have, if we look up here in Holly's calendar, you're going to see that this appointment doesn't show up. Okay, Holly has a completely separate calendar than what Bob Bass has. Okay, so fairly straightforward here. What we've done so far is we've just given Holly the ability to add, delete, modify basically items in the calendar, and then also the inbox. If we go down here to Bob Bass's inbox, we'll just delete this meaningless email here, see if we can do it. Okay, for some reason the item cannot be deleted. Well, the reason is we only set permissions on the calendar. Okay, so we still don't have the ability to actually delete items here. Okay, we're going to move on to our next piece, and the next thing we're going to look at is delegates. Okay, delegates, or sending on behalf of. And this is kind of cool. It's really just an extension of what we were doing already. Bob Bass has become more and more comfortable with what Holly has done for him, and he's gained more confidence in her, so he's going to delegate more permission down to her. So what we're going to look at now, okay, and keep in mind we're logged on to XP1 right now. So this is Bob Bass. He's opened up his Outlook client. Okay, we're going to get rid of those permissions we had before, so we're going to start from scratch. So let's go in here to sharing. And the reason I'm getting rid of these, well, just to show you this example and to show you exactly how it works without any, pre-existing settings, we're going to get rid of everything and just start over. Okay, so we're just deleting these 3 permissions. And the last one is on the mailbox itself. Okay, good enough. So all of Holly's permissions have been stripped away. Now, in this case, very similar to what we did right now. Okay, we're going to give Holly the ability to actually access this information. But one step further, we also want to give her the ability to send on behalf of Bob. So she'll be able to send out a meeting invite. She'll be able to send out email to other people. And this email is going to be sent out. It's going to look like it's coming from Bob, but when you open it up, it's going to say Bob Bass sent, or it's actually going to say Holly Mackerel sent on behalf of Bob Bass. Okay, let's go through and we'll show you this. So I've selected the mailbox for Bob Bass. I go to Tools, and then I go to Options. Now this last tab you see here is Delegates, and this is only available in Outlook if you're connected to an Exchange server. So if you've got a PST file you're using, you won't see this tab. And when I select delegates, it tells us a lot right here. It's important that you read this. Delegates can send items on your behalf. To grant permission to others to access your folders without also giving them send on behalf privileges, go to the Properties dialog box for each folder and change the options on the Permissions tab. That's what we just did. So basically what it's telling you to do is you can give people permissions to your folders. That's what we did here. But if you want them to send on behalf of you, here's where you go. Okay, so we're going to just go through the exact same example with Holly. So we're adding her name. Okay, and now it automatically pops this up, and it allows you to go through and pick out exactly what Holly can or can't do. Okay, so I really don't want her messing with my tasks. I do want her to review my email. Okay, so she can read items, read and create items, can read, create, and modify items. Okay, well, you know, we kind of trust her at this point, so we're going to let her do this, and we're also going to let her modify my calendar as well. Okay, so I've set her up as the editor for both the calendar and the inbox. Okay, and you can do the same thing for any of these different options that you prefer. Okay, other stuff. Automatically send a message to delegate summarizing these permissions. So this is going to send a message out to Holly letting her know exactly what she can do for Bob. So this is important to do. And then our last option, delegate can see my private items. In the Outlook, you have the ability to actually mark certain items as private. And what that'll do is keep those items from prying eyes. Okay? If you don't want Holly to see stuff, you can just mark certain items as private and she won't be able to see those particular items. Okay? And keep in mind, you may have 3 or 4 different people you're sharing your information with. Okay? So if you have a calendar that's shared between 4 or 5 different people, you may not want everybody else to see it, but you may want Holly to be able to see those items because she's kind of setting all of your appointments for you and she's your right-hand woman. Okay, well in this case here, we're going to leave these settings as you see. We're going to click OK. Okay, and then here you see one more option, send meeting requests and responses only to my delegates, not to me. Okay, I prefer to see these myself. I'd like to see what's going on, but if you don't want anything to do with meeting requests and responses, just let that person deal with it, well, check this box. Okay, so I click OK here, and I've got one more task that I need to do here, and that's that mailbox that we were talking about before. We need to right-click the mailbox, okay, and then assign Holly permissions just to make it at least visible. Okay, so I'm going to come down here to Holly. Okay, and I want her to just be able to see that mailbox. So I click Folder Visible, click OK, and we're all set here. Okay, back over to our base system then. So I minimize XP1, and now sitting here, we're going to go ahead and open up Outlook for Holly. And you'll see here in a second, we get the email sent from Bob. You've been designated as a delegate for Bob Bass. If we open this up, it tells us exactly what we can and can't do. Calendar, we're an editor. Inbox, we're an editor. Okay, and now what you can do with this, we're going to go here to the inbox. It doesn't really matter whose inbox you start from. Okay, so let's just close these so there's no confusion. Okay, we still have this opened up from previous, and if we open it now, we still see that we can see the calendar and the inbox. Okay, we should have permissions now, so we should be able to actually delete this. Okay, and you can see we just deleted that item. Now what I can also do though is go to New. Okay, and I can send a message on behalf of Bob Bass. Okay, now if I want to send a message from Holly and it has nothing to do with Bob Bass, this is real simple. I just send a message. We're going to send this out to Frank Bullhead. Okay, and I'm putting in the subject, this is from Holly, just so you know that this is sent directly from Holly. Okay, so I've done nothing else. I've just literally created a new message. Like I said before, it doesn't matter if I'm within Bob Bass's mailbox or within Holly's mailbox when I click New Message. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here to my message and just go ahead and send it out to Frank. Okay, now let's say that I want to send a message off to Frank Bullhead for Bob Bass. Bob Bass is out of the office. What I need to do is click New, just like I was doing before. Okay, and we'll just have a sales meeting. Okay, Frank, call Bob on his cell. Now there's one big step that you need to do here, and that's go to this options box here. Okay, and if you click this, you see that you've got a from field. And in some cases, you'll find this up here in View as well, just depending upon how you have Outlook configured. Okay, but no matter where it's located, you need to find this From field, select it, and now from here on out it's going to add this From field to all of your email messages. Now what you can do is just select the From field, which opens up your global address list, and you can choose who this message is going to be from. Now once again, you can't just select anybody here at random. If you select Angelfish once again, well, you're going to get a message that bounces back to you because you just don't have permissions. I guess, okay, I'll prove it to you. Let's go ahead and click From Angelfish, click Send, okay, and it's going to look like it goes through initially. Hit Send Receive here. Let's see if we get that message back already. Okay, right here, undeliverable sales meeting. Okay, and if we open this up, you do not have permissions to send to this recipient. It's not real detailed on why it didn't go through, but it didn't. So I'm going to click Send again, which is just going to open up this exact same message. We're going to send it to Frank. This time, however, I'm going to choose to send it from Bob Bass. Okay, so I click Send. Okay, and I'm going to click Send Receive. Let's see if we get it to bounce back to us here. So we'll sit here a little bit on this machine. Okay, and it looks like it went through okay. So let's go ahead and minimize Outlook. Okay, and what I'm going to do now, instead of logging Bob off of this other machine, we're going to jump ahead here. You haven't learned about Outlook Web Access, but we can actually access our mailboxes by opening up a web browser, typing in the name of the server, and we're going to cover this in great detail about 3 videos from now, and then typing in Exchange. So this is the name of the server, Exchange 1, and then this is always the directory you'll specify. There's a virtual directory within the web server that connects you off, using HTTP, connects you off to the Exchange server mailboxes. So now when I click Enter, I'm actually going to do one more thing. I'm going to put in Frank Bullhead's user account there, so we connect directly to Frank Bullhead's email box. We need to log on. Okay, and this is going to open up Outlook Web Access for Frank, and it's going to allow us to just check and see if those emails made it through. Okay, and we got kind of a scrunched up view because of the screen resolution size, so I can't do a ton here. Trying to minimize this to give you a better view, but that's okay. All right, so here we see a test from Bob Bass that wasn't even from today. Here's the email message from Holly. Okay, and you can see right here it says this is from Holly. If I open up this message, it doesn't say anything else. It just comes from Holly. It's to Frank. Okay? Now this message comes from Bob Bass regarding a sales meeting. If I open this up, it's from Holly Mackerel on behalf of Bob Bass. Okay, so this just means to you that Holly's the person who actually sent this email message, but she did it on behalf of Bob Bass. Okay, so this is real common in organizations where you're utilizing a administrative assistant. Okay, so fairly simple to do, not too difficult to set up. Okay, next we're going to be working on the Send As permission. So if we go back into OneNote here, let's take a look at where we stand right now. We've gone over sharing Outlook objects and Outlook permissions. Okay, we just got done with doing the Send On Behalf of. Well, now we're going to be working as Send As, or assigning permissions in Active Directory. Now this is different than Send On Behalf because the Send On Behalf, remember that email shows up and it's sent on behalf of Bob Bass by Holly Mackerel. In this situation, we're actually going to give Holly Mackerel full mailbox rights, and she's going to be able to send email for Bob Bass, and you're not even going to know that it's sent by Holly Mackerel. Okay, so she has complete control over Bob's mailbox. Okay, let's take a look at how we can do this. And the first thing we're going to do, let's connect back over to XP1. We're going to take away those settings that we already had created so they're not conflicting or getting in our way. So just from our last exercise, let's just go ahead and come back in here and we'll disable this permission, and we're going to go in here to the Delegates tab and take Holly Mackerel away from being a delegate as well. Okay, so these are absolutely not necessary for this next piece that we're going to be working on. Okay, so we're going to connect over to Exchange 1. We need to manage Active Directory. So here we'll open up Active Directory users and computers. Okay, we're going to have to drill down and actually find the mailbox where we want to assign these permissions. Now the first thing you want to do is come in here to the View button and then select Advanced Features. Okay, by default, Advanced Features are turned off. I'm going to come in here and go to View, Advanced Features, so I can see all the different tabs on the user accounts, and I'll point out to you exactly which one we needed to see that wasn't viewable before. So we're going to go to Bob Bass's user account, and I'm just going to right click, go to Properties, okay, and if we go all the way over first to the Exchange Advanced tab, we're going to go to Mailbox Rights. Okay, now I'm going to go through here and set this, give you a feel for how this is done, but this has already been set up ahead of time. I added Holly Mackerel just by clicking Add, typing in her name, or the start of her name, okay, and just clicking OK here. After that was done, Holly's name was added below, and I gave her these permissions here. I've selected everything except Associated External Account. Okay, so once you're done doing that, you can click OK. Okay, and the important one here is the full mailbox access. You're giving Holly full mailbox access to Bob's account, and that's something, a security consideration that you need to take into account as well. Do you really want to give Holly that much control over Bob's mailbox? So that's something you need to talk to both of them about and make sure that Bob's aware of exactly what's going on there. Now if you come back over here, we have a security tab, and this tab is normally not viewable on the user account. Because we enabled those advanced features that we were talking about before, we're able to see the security tab. Okay, and what we're looking to do here is give Holly a specific right, the send as, it's actually permission, the send as permission. So to do this, we need to just go to the advanced button. Okay, and that's going to bring up all of our advanced entries. Click add Holly's name just like we did a second ago. Okay, so I've already added that down here. Okay, and now I just select Edit. And what you want to do is make sure that you select Apply onto this object only. So from this drop-down box here, it's the very top one up here. We can't see it because it's blocked here. Let's see. Okay, up here at the very top. So this object only. And then you want to select Send As Allow, and that's the only permission. Nothing else is selected here. Okay, so you click OK, OK again, OK a third time down here at the bottom. Okay, and then you're all set. The permissions have been configured. Now, this is different. In Exchange 2000, this setting was real simple. You just gave basically the user full mailbox access rights, and they could send email for Bob Bass in this case. Okay, well, Exchange 2003 is much more difficult, and I found it to be a little bit unreliable. And if you look at knowledge base articles and you research this online, you'll find that even the knowledge base articles lead you down a path that doesn't work. Okay, so after doing much research, trial and error, and actually going to several blogs, kind of figured out a way to make this work, and that's what we just demonstrated to you right here. So this is an undocumented way at this point of making this work. Okay, so we're going to go back over now to our XP base system where Holly is logged on. And now we're going to open up Outlook. I'm going to close this and reopen it just to make sure that my permissions are in place. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and send an email on Bob's behalf. It's actually not on Bob's behalf. I'll show you this in a second. So just to show you here, we've got both mailboxes present. In case you forgot, remember it's really important that you know how to add this mailbox. Remember, it's going to Tools, Email Accounts, View or Change. Okay, from here you're going to click on Change, More Settings, and then from this Advanced tab here, you select Add. And if you wanted to remove it, you can remove it, of course, as well. Okay, so we can just cancel out of here since we made no changes. I'm going to go ahead and click New up here, and we're going to send an email out to Ray Moray. Sales report is late. Okay, so our hypothetical here is Bob called up Holly Mackerel on the phone and basically said, hey, can you send this email out to Ray? I don't have access to email, but I want to make sure that I get the sales report from him. He's got to send it to me or email it to me, that sort of thing. So Holly could, of course, send this herself, but it's going to come with much more force and power if she sends it from Bob. So what she can do is just select Bob's name, click OK here, and now when she clicks Send, okay, because she has permissions to send on Bob's behalf, not Bob's behalf, as Bob. And it's a big, big difference because when you're sending on behalf of somebody in that situation, then it shows that in the email. When you're sending as somebody, as we're going to see here in a second, Bob Bass is the only name that's going to be present on that actual email. Okay, so if I minimize here, we're going to go ahead and use Outlook Web Access to connect over to Ray Moray's account. Okay, we're going to log on here. Let's check and see if this email has arrived here. Okay, you see right here, Bob Bass, sales report is late. So it comes from Bob Bass, and when Ray opens it up, it says nothing at all about how he's sending it. Okay, so this is the permission to send as, and it can be very, very effective, and in a lot of cases used instead of the on behalf of permission that you just saw. Okay, another example of how this can be used is a group mailbox. Going back in here to our OneNotes presentation, we just got done with the send as piece, and now we're going to look at the group mailbox setup. Now this is real similar to the send as, except now we're basically doing it for a group. We're allowing a whole group of users to access one common mailbox. So our hypothetical here is that we've got this sales department, inbound sales leads are coming in or sales questions are coming in, and we want these to go to a common mailbox rather than just individual users. Okay, so a user on the internet may have no clue who your 10 salespeople are, so they're going to send an email out to sales@sophystoybox.com. So when that happens, you want that email to come into a common mailbox, and then any of those 10 salespeople to be able to access that email and respond appropriately. Okay, to do this, we're going to connect over to Exchange 1, and then open up Active Directory users and computers again. Okay, the first thing that you'll have to do is create a dedicated user account for that Exchange mailbox. Okay, so we don't really care necessarily about the user being able to log on. That's not going to be what's happening here. Let's go ahead and set this up here. We're only setting this up so we get a mailbox out of the deal. Okay, so just set up that. We're going to create a mailbox. We're going to leave the alias at salesbox. Click Next, and now click Finish. Okay, now our next issue that we're going to run into is, keep in mind we've already used sales@sophystoybox.local up, and we have not set up an internet domain yet. That's going to be in the next video, but in the next video we're going to have sophystoybox.com up and running. Okay, so an email address will be generated for sales@sophystoybox.com, and currently it's going to point to our internal distribution list that you see here, sales@sophystoybox.com. Okay, what we want to do is eventually we're going to edit this, okay, change this to sales, something like internal sales@sophystoybox.com, okay, and then we'll move this salesbox email address that should be ready by now, yep, salesbox@sophystoybox.com. We'll turn this email address into sales@sophystoybox.com. Okay, and that makes sense because nobody's going to notice sending an email into salesbox@sophystoybox.com. Okay, so what we need to do now is go into this user account. Let's go ahead and right click, go to Properties, come over here to our Exchange Advanced tab, and I want to show you one thing that happens when you look at these mailbox rights when you first create a new user. Okay, this only lists self as the permission, and this is just the default way that permissions are set up until you actually enable this account. And an account is enabled either by sending an email to it or by logging on as that user. So we could do either one of these right now. What we're going to do is just minimize this, and we're going to send an email out to salesbox@sophystoybox.local. So I'm going to cancel, because we're going to want to refresh those anyway, and I'm just going to open up Outlook here. Okay, and we'll just have to type this out. It's not going to come up automatically. Okay, salesbox@sophystoybox.local. You don't need anything here, but enable. Click Send, and let's give this a second, make sure that this email has actually gone through. Okay, looks to be okay. Yep. Okay, so let's connect back over to Exchange 1 now, and what we're going to do now is connect into the sales box again by just right-clicking, going to Properties, and we'll come over here to the Exchange Advanced tab. Okay, now when I go to Mailbox Rights, let's see if we have our permissions. Yes, we do. Okay, see, now these permissions have been turned into what you would expect to see and what we saw previously. Okay, and these are just the default permissions that are assigned to any new mailbox when it's set up. Okay, so what do we need to do here? Well, we need to assign a user or a group permissions to the mailbox. They need to be able to open this mailbox up. And in this case, it's not a user, but it's a group. So we're going to add sales. Okay, and we have two different choices. We're going to choose this sales group, click OK, and we want to give them full mailbox access. We'll go ahead and give these other permissions as well. Okay, so we've got this set up. Now we can click OK. And now we need to go over to our Exchange Security tab. Okay, and like we said just prior, the only way you'll see the Security tab is if you go over here and go to View Advanced Features. Otherwise, it's not going to show up. Okay, so within this Security tab, what we need to do is now go to Add. Okay, and we're going to add, oops, let's actually go down here and do it the right way. Let's go to the Advanced button. And within the Advanced button, it just makes it a little bit easier to actually add the proper permissions. We're going to go to Add. It's going to be the sales group again. So we're going to choose sales from up top and then click OK. Click OK here. And now we need to assign permissions. It's real important though that you change this apply onto to this object only. So if we click this drop down arrow here, hard to see on this small screen, but it's typically up way at the top. Okay, maybe it's not. This object only, is it down here? I can't seem to find it here, so let's scroll all the way up here. Well, let's set this permission. Yeah, let's go ahead and set this permission, and we'll change it when we need to. But what we need to do is set send as, and we really want it applied only to this object. So if I click OK here, we see that it still says this object and all child objects. We're going to want to edit that and try to, not all objects, try to get it so it says to this object only. So just because of the screen resolution size here, I'm not able to actually pull this last option up. Let's see if I can by doing it this way. There we go. This object only. You might have been able to see that, but with the recording software in place, I'm not able to get up to all those top options. Okay, so I selected that, and now what I'm going to do then is click OK, and click OK here once again. Oh, let's verify that actually before we click OK. Where is sales? I don't see the sales access control entry that we just put in here. Let's try adding it one more time. I want to make sure that we have it in here. Okay, sales. Okay. This object only. Okay, then we come down here to send as. Now it's okay. And there it is right there. So maybe I accidentally had canceled it out before, didn't realize it. Now I'm going to click OK again, and you'll see it appear here in this access control list as well. Okay, right here. And none of these should be checked except for send as you see right here. Okay, that's what we want. So done here. And now I just have to click OK down here at the bottom. Okay, so that's the first step. We've got that taken care of. Now, anybody who's a member of the sales group, who is basically Frank, Ray, Steve, and Sue, these users should be able to access this sales mailbox. Okay, let's go ahead and try this out. What we'll do is close Exchange 1, and we're going to log off XP1. We're going to log Bob Bass off, and we'll log on XP1 as Ray Moray, just to give this a whirl and see if it actually works how we're expecting it to. In case we log on as any member of the sales team, it doesn't matter which one it is. This will be a good experience because it'll take you through the process of setting up this mailbox correctly and also adding the additional mailbox that needs to be added within your Outlook client. So it takes a little bit of time. This is the first time I believe Ray Moray has logged on to XP1. So it's loading that profile up right now. And what we'll do next is start Outlook. And we'll have to go through that new Outlook wizard anytime you install Outlook for the first time on a computer. Okay, so it's doing that right now. It's generating Ray Moray's Outlook profile. Okay, so it'll just take a couple seconds and we'll go through the wizard here just like we've done a couple times in the past already. Okay, so we're going to click Next on this first screen. Yes, we want to create an email account. We're setting up a Microsoft Exchange Server account. Then the Exchange server we're connecting to is Exchange 1. And then the user account is Armore. So if we check, that works out okay, and our email account is set up. Okay, now remember before, we had those emails that were sent that we were able to get through Outlook Web Access. Let's just change this real quick. And you see those come through here as well. Okay, all of these were set up here. Now what we're trying to do, let's get to email, folder list. That's what we're looking for. What we're trying to do now is set up that additional sales mailbox. So what we need to do in order to do this is go into Tools. We're going to go to Email Accounts, View or Change Existing Email Accounts, and we're going to go to Change, More Settings, the Advanced tab, and then right here we're going to choose the actual mailbox that we want to open up. So it's called Sales, and we're opening up this sales box here. So I click OK, Next, and Finish, and now you see that we have this sales mailbox sitting right here. Okay, so email that's now sent to this sales mailbox we should be able to view. And you can see right here when we look, here's that one email we sent to enable the account, sent from Holly Mackerel's account. So you can see that Ray Moray is able to not only open up his own email box, but he can open up the sales box as well. Okay, if we want to send email on behalf of the sales box, New, okay, it's just like we did before. Go over here to Options and then choose the From field. Okay, instead of sending it from Ray, typically what we're going to want to do is select the sales box. It's not present right now only because it was just set up, but after 5-10 minutes or so more, we should see that sales box option here, and we can choose that. What that's going to do then, when a customer sends in an email to sales@sophystoybox.com, when we send a reply back to them, we'd rather send it from sales@sophystoybox.com. That way they're going to see it as just a general sales team, and when they respond back to us again, it'll go back into the general mailbox rather than directly into Ray Moray's account. Okay, so pretty cool, fairly easy to set up, and a very effective way to manage general email with one team. Okay, the last thing we're going to look at in this video are Outlook profiles. Now, an Outlook profile comes in handy when you're out of the office a lot traveling, and maybe you want to set up your email so it checks two different types of mailboxes. So for example, when you're in the office, you have a connection to the local area network and the Exchange server. So you're going to have one profile that connects you just like we've been doing throughout these videos. However, when you travel outside of the office, you really don't have a connection to your Exchange server, so you may set up another profile that automatically is going to download email either into a PST file or your offline file, something like that. Let me give you an idea of how this is set up first. Okay, so normally when we open up Outlook, remember we just open it and it just opens right up and we're connecting to our Exchange server. If this were a laptop, however, and we were out of the office right now, if we open this up, we're not going to have access to that Exchange server. Any new email we might want to check is not going to be checkable because we don't have a direct connection to that Exchange server. What we can do, maybe we have a POP3 account that we want to use, so we can set up a profile to prompt us whether or not we're in the office or traveling. So let's first go to our mail icon here within Control Panel. And here you see that we have profiles, okay? Set up multiple profiles of email accounts and data files. Typically you just need one, but we're going to take a look here. And you can see I started setting up a traveling profile before. Let's remove that and give you a feel for how it's done from scratch. Now you can start off first by looking, this is just our default Outlook profile, the one we've been using already. If we go to Properties, we can do a couple things. We can look at the email accounts associated with it. We can add additional email accounts to that profile. Okay, so we have some options here. If we want to add an additional profile, we just click Add, put in our profile name, click OK, and it's going to take us through the process of setting up an email account to associate with this profile. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set this up. I have a let's say an outside POP3 account that I'm using. We're logged on as Holly Mackerel, so let's just use Holly Mackerel. Okay, and then whatever your POP3 settings and SMTP settings are, I won't fill in all of these for you, but before we use pop.bizmail at yahoo.com and then smtp.bizmail.yahoo.com. Okay, username, whatever your username might be. Typically, as I said before, when we went through the POP3 setup, you're going to be using your domain name along with your username and whatever your password might be. Okay, so this isn't a live account. If I test this, it's not going to work, but just to give you a feel for how this would work. Okay, so go through, if you have any additional settings, set those up, click Next, and then Finish, and now we have two different profiles. Okay, so, well, how does this work? Well, we can either come into this actual mail icon and then choose one of these profiles. So now if I choose Traveling User, for example, I can click OK, and whenever I open up Outlook, it's going to open up and it's going to load that traveling user profile. Okay, if I come back in here again though, better way of doing this is to say, or actually right here, always use this profile. We should have selected traveling user and it would have loaded that one. That's what we're supposed to do first, is change that. Okay, so if I select this and click OK, now when we open up Outlook, okay, it's loading this traveling user profile. Notice that it sets up a personal folder, a PST file. And this is just the error message telling me that, hey, this email address isn't valid out here. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this for right now so we don't have to see that. Okay, so this is a personal folder file that's associated with this particular profile. You can also come back here into the profile settings, and you can be prompted for which profile you want to use every time. So if I click OK this time, now when I open up Outlook, I have the choice, Traveling User or Outlook. Which one do you want to actually select? Okay, or you can select a new profile, whichever you want to do. So if I select Outlook, now it's going to load up my machine, and this is what I would use anytime I connect my laptop inside the network when I have direct access to the Exchange server. If I'm traveling again and I just need to check email, I can have my POP3 settings actually going inbound to connect to the Exchange server over the internet. Okay, maybe you don't have good connectivity and you want to check email, just download it, take a look at it without having to have full connectivity to that Exchange server. That's another option for you too. Okay, so profile, pretty basic to set up. What you really need to do is just plan out how you're going to use the profile ahead of time, because it can cause a lot of confusion and then duplicate emails depending upon which profile you're using. Okay, so if you can get away with it, avoid using a profile and just stick to having one email data store, which should be on your Exchange server. Okay, that wraps up video 3 part 2. We'll see you back here real soon in video 4 when we start going over SMTP gateways and how to set up your internet gateway. And we're going to get our network, Sophie's Toy Box Company, connected out to the internet and start sending email back and forth over the internet.